Hey guys, it's Malvo here once again with the Endgame update on what I will probably call my best well-rounded character I think I've ever made. In that it's still got some pretty decent DPS, decent mapping, and also very durable and survivable. Pretty much never build this type of thickness on a character, but it just kind of naturally happened. As it's a shield build, shield playstyle that you really have to take some shield nodes on, and as well as that, just the way we've built around the Ashes Amulet and the alt qualities really has lended itself to taking whatever nodes on the tree we want, as opposed to having to just force my way into a bunch of deeps and then think of defense as a bit of an afterthought. So the combination of all of Inquisitor's regen, a bit of extra life and energy shield, a bunch of block, and then divine shield has made the character insanely thick. And by thick, we mean durable, can sit around, can take lots of hits, just about every situation where I would normally have to run around and dodge shit, instead can just face tank. So, for example, these little abysses, all kinds of harbingers and shit, and simulacrum got up to wave 30, but ultimately fell to just had a couple of deaths and some cosises, and then also on a particularly thick wave. But it's the first time I've ever seen wave 30 in a simulacrum, and it is pretty much entirely because we can run around and block stuff and all that. The clear on the character is probably the worst thing about it, as you can maybe sometimes see the SST Spectral Shield Throw 4-link with a fork is decent. It is decent, and it's by all means comfortable. Almost got to level 95 on the character. It was completely fine, but if I had to pick something that felt the worst on it, I'd say the clear just feels a little off sometimes with that fork. By all means, still very good, and I'm not complaining about it, but you know, if you did a 6-link Spectral Shield Throw, it'd be obviously better. Maybe you just instead want to play pure Shield Crush, because you can just attach some area to that and then do Shield Crush for clear. But I really like the hybrid playstyle of having a bit of a ranged ability and then immediately, as we need to, press Shield Crush for pure single target with no gem swaps, anything like that. So it was pretty smooth doing all of that. And Shield Crush for single target, it was extremely melee, so you know, I did have Conk Effect permanently in the setup, and it didn't really make much of a, you know, wasn't too much of an issue because the character could afford to and did face tank almost everything I threw it at. Yep, nailed it. DPS ended up being something like 10 to 14 million, depending on buffs, depending on rotations and what flasks and focus and how much you could get all of your totems and everything up. So it was most of the time pretty hefty and respectable. Sometimes, you know, you still got to play around some mechanics and wait for a cooldown to come up or some shit. And it was just kind of annoying personally, having to press some buttons like getting the totem up, getting your curse up, and making sure you're doing all the right buttons on your alternate skill bar. But that's just some small complaints about what was ultimately the best character I think I've played in Endgame. Ended up doing pretty much everything as far as I can remember, and for the most part, hardly moving and just face tanking, as you can see, just straight up ignoring most mechanics and testing the thickness of the character by not moving on most mechanics. Just wanted to see, you know, what would kill me, what wouldn't kill me, and most things didn't. So this is a small example of, like, I don't know, wave 27 or some shit. That's when the clear for the fork is really good if there's really large packs, because the fork kind of, like, you know, spreads directly into that pack and then just kind of chains and shit. It gets a little worse when there's some stragglers around, as you know, you can see in this type of an example, and start to use Shield Crush a bit more often in the later waves, just to have a more reliable not single target, but clear with my single target damage. Otherwise, for the most part, just face tanking stuff, and yeah, feeling pretty good about it. And then the next fight you're going to see is the Elder 4-way. and that's all at once. I tried to roll them all at once, but most of these things, but it's kind of hard sometimes. In any case, this was an all at once and went down pretty comfortably. Gives me a chance to talk about the changes that I made to the character since the last video. I think the gear was pretty much the same, didn't really change, but I did revamp my passive tree a bit. So instead of going down the left-hand side of the Marauder, went more towards the Duelist area and ended up, as you might notice, being fully blinded by taking one of the Brutal Restraint Timeless Jewel Keystones, where you get 25% more melee crit chance while being blinded. Now, being blinded is not that big a deal anymore. It used to be very detrimental, whereas these days it can almost be just a pure 25 more melee crit. So with that keystone and then taking a few extra accuracy nodes that you'll be able to see on the POB, with taking that, I can actually cap my crit comfortably on Shield Crush, having taken no crit nodes on the tree besides those few accuracy ones. So it ended up being worth doing, and still managed to maintain roughly the same amount of life and block and all of that as I had before, but I think I managed to squeeze in just a bit more reliable DPS by doing this setup. Otherwise, could have still gone a bit thicker, didn't really take like a few armor energy shield nodes just because I figured I had enough. Tried to tank the laser there of Maven, and that worked out fine. So it's still a bit of a choose your own adventure. You could have gone more DPS, you could have gone more damage, defense, you could go more life. I tried to make it kind of as well balanced as I could after I realized I could tank most things. Like we can tank Cirrus lasers, especially if you put Molten Shell into the build, which I only did in the last like few hours of the stream yesterday, because I had to sacrifice a faster attacks on shield charge to do it. So all in all, yeah, very, very pleased with the character. This is just basically another 4-way, but just the Shaper Guardians, and I basically tried to not move as much as I could early on. Anyway, yep. It's also my first feared fight, I think, that you're about to see, which I think is Deathless. I'm not sure I've ever done a Deathless feared before. Usually like one death, but this is the first time that it properly felt good to just like avoid stuff. So in any case, guys, very fun character. It's probably about 15 to 20x worth in total. If you do all your own crafting and like know what you're doing with prefix cannot be changed, that sort of thing. And it, yeah, just thoroughly enjoyable character. Time to move on. Hope you guys enjoyed the little build and the use of the alt qualities. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Dude. Who got Twin Terror? Didn't you just then do a slam? Oh, it's clone. What clones am I dealing with right now? Oh. Alright. I think that's my first ever Deathless vid. Maybe? I can't remember. But, long story short, it was the first time I ever really felt kind of safe enough that I could play around the mechanics, kinda, and, you know, like, set them up well enough to have good kill timings and shit. Shit's thick. It's a good fucking character. Like, I've never felt so durable. And we still had good deeps, like the burst can still go out of control.